Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to Two Welshmen and Englishmen Walking to a Tavern, episode 3. We're going to be talking about our games of the decade, possibly our game of the decade. It depends if we can all agree on it. I'm going to say we can't already. We've not even started, but
No.
we definitely won't be able to agree on them anyway. But first off, I want to start with how your guys' weeks have gone. What have you been playing? Have you played anything new? You know, what's been going on in your worlds?
We'll start off with, I want to just say, friendly reminder, the human eye can only see 24 frames per second.
Wait, what?
You never heard the argument before.
No, I heard that it was something like this 72 frames per second.
There is no perceived human eye rate of perceiving frames.
Okay.
Just doesn't work like that. But now
I believe 24 FPS is the point at which the eye starts to notice the difference between
perceives
stills
true
and-
motion. It's
Yeah.
what's known as true motion. At 24 frames per second is when pictures just become movement. And that's why all movies are recorded in 24 frames per second.
Oh, okay. So there you go. I didn't know that.
And a lot of people who try to bag on the PC community and claim that, oh yeah, why do you need all these high refresh rates and high frame rates? The human eye can only see 24 frames per second anyway. You're wrong. And it's just
Yeah,
it's
you're
just
very,
no,
very
no,
wrong. I mean,
no.
especially when you need to have that split second. Me being a FIFA player for so many years. Yeah, okay, let's just get over that bit. Because I have a capture card, I've recently upgraded my capture card, but I used to play it through that onto my PC screen, and that capped at 30 frames per second.
Oh, that's awful.
And yeah, I always thought that I was severely lagging because it's FIFA and the servers are crap. I'm not going to beat around the bush; they're terrible. And I played for it for so long, I kind of got used to it. Went back to just a normal TV when I decided I wasn't gonna like stream FIFA. This was a couple of years ago now, and oh my god, you can tell the difference from 30 to 60. It is, it's crazy. I'm you can absolutely tell the difference. But I guess
I had to stop playing Assassin's Creed
Origins
on Xbox because later on in the game you get to some of the like beautiful cities. Don't get me wrong, very highly detailed, but that's exactly their downfall. I was only playing on a standard Xbox One, and so every time I got there, my frame rates would just crap down to, honestly, I think less than 30, and I can't handle it. I've been playing it higher than that for so long.
Yeah,
I can't go back.
I
I've
think
tried.
it comes down to what you get used to and how
Yeah.
you perceive it. Because way back when I used to play on consoles and consoles only, I used to experience games. They were obviously running at 30 FPS, and I didn't see an issue. They were fine. They played gloriously, or at least to me. Whereas Leachy here, who's been playing on PC for a lot longer, than you say, "Oh, this feels awful. This feels awful. How can you be okay with this?" And I'm just like,
That was like Halo 4.
yeah, for example. And I'm just like, what? I don't see the issue. This feels fine. And then obviously when I built my PC and started and became a PC gamer, trying to go back, it's like, oh my god, I used to think this felt fine.
yeah.
Oh,
Not just that whole movement from console into PC when
Yeah.
you first start using a mouse and keyboard as well. Slightly changing the subject here is completely getting used to the keyboard and the mouse, and you think, oh, I'm never going to get used to this. This is really difficult. It's really challenging to kind of perceive it, and then you play it for so long, you get used to it. You go back to a controller, and oh my god, it's
Oh, mate, it's
horrible.
It's awful.
My dad has been playing Resident Evil 2 on Xbox because I bought it for him for Christmas, and he asked me to do a section for him the other day, and oh my dear lord, he's got it on like the easiest difficulty, so the zombies are just like lumbering at me, slow as all hell, and I'm just cheesing my shots completely
Yeah.
because analog sticks just.
Yeah, any kind of shooter, that's it. It is game over. When I
I used to play Battlefield 3 on like max sensitivity.
yeah, way back when.
Yeah, and like Modern Warfare 2 on like insane.
See those were the days, but that's what you were used to at the time. Like,
Yeah.
I
I
now
couldn't do it anymore.
no with cross-platform play. Like I was able to play Fortnite with people. I've been able to play the new Call of Duty.
Sorry, what?
I don't like Fortnite. It's
Get
a
out.
terrible,
The
terrible
podcast
game.
done, mate.
It's
Go
a terrible,
build yourself
terrible
a tower
game.
and leave.
I'd build a tower and jump off of it. That's how bad that game is. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the new one that came out this
Your
year.
base just went from 4 to 3.
Yeah. The cross-play with that is really nice because I can play with people on console. I play with a lot of friends that I went to school with. I play FIFA with them. I play stuff on the Xbox, and now I can play on my PC. And it's just so much better because I used to have to go and play with them. Like when Modern Warfare 2 became backwards compatible, we all played it. But because I was on a console, oh my god, I was useless. I was so bad. And now
Playing it any better on keyboard.
I'm better. I'm better with a mouse than I am a controller, and I'm not all that great with a controller. With a mouse, to be fair. So I go back to a controller, and I look like I'm just going, hey, just clapping away, because I'm so useless. I'm so useless with a controller, but
I completely derailed this conversation
right
right from the get-go with one joke.
It's fine. It's at the end of the day, it is a thing.
You entered with this like planned setup of how you were going to start it, asked a question, and just that went out the window.
I know, it's good to know. You're obviously making a joke about something that's been going on in the world to do with gaming and so on.
For many years.
Yeah, which more than 24. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. Now, I'm used to 50, 60 FPS because I stream.
Yeah.
You know, I a lot of my time was streaming a couple of years ago. Of course, you've got to really balance your system to how much resources you're putting into your streaming software and how many resources you're putting into your game, so that you're not dropping frames in either the game or on the stream, and you're making sure that it's good enough for people to view.
Yeah.
So I'm always used to the 50, 60 frames per second, but I've at first-hand experienced how much of a difference just 30 frames can be. It's incredible, and I'm looking more and more to push my system as far as it can go, but really, I only want to see high frame rates on like Star Citizen, for example, because that game is stunning, but it's so resource heavy at the moment. I told you in the last episode I'm going to bring up Star Citizen at least once. Don't worry though, it's not in my game of the decade or one of my games of the decade for two good reasons. One, it's not released, and two, it's really hard to play at the moment.
At the rate it's going, mate, it'll be next decade we're talking about that one.
Yeah. Well, it's just where we're all croaking. Leachy sounds like he smokes 60 a day.
Like in a decade.
Yeah.
Implying that I'll still be a thing in a decade. I'm gonna die of diabetes or something.
Anyways, Leachy, what have you been up to this week?
So not working.
Okay.
If you haven't noticed,
Yep.
I've got a bit of a thing going on. So yeah, not working. Which does mean a lot more time for sleep and video games.
Yeah.
Which is not bad.
He's making the right decisions.
Been playing a lot of Assetto Corsa still.
Foxhole
I
is
saw that
something
you
we
were on
both have been playing recently.
Yeah, Foxhole's
Not much,
something
but-
new. Yeah. Only dabbled because it's a very in-depth game, to be honest. But you wouldn't think it, but yeah, that's pretty in-depth. What else have I done? I'm trying to think, man. I'm like so into Assetto at the minute that
Basically, you're playing that and
Yeah.
Siege.
yeah, that and Siege. We're playing Siege again. Servers aren't as bad as they used to be. I will say that they're not perfect, but they're not as bad as they used to be.
Yeah, I remember you said in the first episode, because I consistently
I got called
rewatch these
boosted.
episodes.
No, I got called out on boosting apparently.
Yes.
Because I was the highest rank in the game or whatever, but I completely donated my match before, and some guy felt the need to check our stats the second we loaded in. which is pretty try-hardy if you ask me.
For
But
those who don't know, donating is getting 0 kills. So you have a
Yeah.
nice fat donut on your kill count.
yeah, so my last match last night, I had 0 kills. Even though like that match we won it and I ranked up to Platinum 2. So I definitely shouldn't be getting 0 kills Plat 2.
You are welcome.
Yeah, getting carried. But yeah, this dude felt the need to check everyone's ranks the second we loaded into the game, which honestly is a little bit sweaty. I think you're a bit of a try-hardy little prick if you do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was basically saying that I was boosted because I'm a Plat 2 and went 0 kills in my last match, and I only actually managed 3 kills that match. But apparently people haven't heard of bad games. It fucking happens.
Well, I mean,
Sometimes you just play like a complete pleb.
sounds just like League of
And
Legends.
like honestly, right? Platinum 3, which is where I was at the time, is painfully average. Like people think that is a good high rank. It's fucking not. There's so
It's
many
the
players
average
at
rank.
Platinum 3. It isn't straight up the average. Like gold 3 to gold 1 is sort of the average area. But well, I was looking at the stat composition literally earlier today, and there are, according to R6 Tab, which is not the official game statistics, but they do plug into the stats. According to them, there are actually more Plat 3 players than there are Gold 1 players. So it is a very average spot to sit. But people see your logo, and it's like at one point I was literally a couple of points into Plat 3, and some guys like, oh my god, Plat 3, like, are you boosting these guys? Because Rooster and everyone else that was in the lobby with us were all gold. But
I was
it
gold
was literally
1. That's 1 rank lower.
Yeah, it was 1 rank lower, and it was a matter of a couple of MMR points because I was literally a couple into the rank that I was. People see the start again. People see the logo and they like lose their head. They're like, "Oh, yeah, you're clearly boosting or being boosted because you're this rank and you should be good, but you're having a bad match." But they don't say you're having a bad match. You're just a shit player, apparently.
It's the same with any competitive games.
Yeah, I don't see the need for it personally. We've like
jealousy.
They were so big and smart, right? If they were that into the stat reading that, oh yeah, but you donated your last game, go and check my history, because if they're that caught up that I was boosted, look at who the highest rank in the lobby was every single time. It was me. How can I possibly be the boosted player if I'm the highest rank in the lobby?
Yeah,
it's a fair point. Very fair point.
Do you know what it was? I had very good placement matches. I came out of my placement 1 win away from Plat 3. I had a really good placement set, which is 10 matches. But I chose to play all 10 of those matches with at least a 4-man team, and I lost only 3 of them. Of the 10 games, I lost 3. So I had a very good placement rank. And that's the only reason that I managed to get to Plat 3 in the first place. But that being said, I've maintained it longer this season than I ever have in the past. So I don't know. To me, that kind of says that that's probably my rank. Being able to get to a rank is one thing, but it's when you actually hold it and sustain it is when you can consider yourself that rank.
Yeah.
But it's like I hit Plat 2 last night. I lost it today. So until I manage to maintain it, I'm Plat 3 as far as I'm concerned.
That's fair.
But yeah, that's what I've been doing. Assetto Corsa, just grinding up my safety rating on there.
And over-analysing everything he does on Siege.
Yes, very bad for that.
I'm slowly getting round to playing the game again. Siege.
Well, what's that, Siege? Oh, nice.
Yeah,
You should come join us.
I'm thinking about it. I'm on the fence. I'm not 100%.
There's unranked now. There is an unranked mode which has all of the rule set of ranked without a rank.
So less of the pressure. It's actually it's where I was primarily playing until just one day, just someone made us for a ranked match for whatever reason, and that was it. Because I was stuck behind this hurdle. I was like, I don't know. I have a bit of a mental block as far as my rank is concerned. As much as I try to tell myself that this silly little icon on screen doesn't matter for shit, like I still have this thing that it kind of does. I like to climb the ranks and like to know myself that I'm improving or whatever. So I tend to get a little bit more caught up on my rank than I should. But by playing a lot of unranked before going back into ranked, it just gives you that mindset of playing the ranked game.
Yeah.
Because for all intents and purposes, it is. It just, at the end of the match, it accounts for nothing. But in terms of like banning operators and the way you play and the matches only being 3 minutes long, it's all the same as ranked.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should come play with us anyway, even if we go back to unranked for a little while, so that you can get into the swing of things.
Yeah, I might do. I'm really contemplating it at the moment
It's a
because
good game. It's improved.
we do fluctuate between having 3 men on at any one point or 4.
yeah.
So we could possibly make a 5, or we'd always have a 4th.
Well, I think my point for it kind of leads on to what I've been playing over the last week or so. So I was playing FIFA, doing the weekend league, streaming it,
Right.
and I went full rage mode.
That doesn't surprise me.
I
if I'm
went
honest.
full like I do not rage like seriously bad.
Yeah, whatever.
At most games like I do with FIFA.
I know what you did.
What?
When you raged, I know what you did.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
I know what you did.
Never mind. Let's move on.
Moving on.
Yes, that was one of, but I raged quite hard later, but nothing
Multiple times.
nothing happened. Yeah, that wasn't good. So for that very reason, I've decided to not really play FIFA anymore, and most probably boycott the game because
No.
Cancel culture.
purely on the basis that the matchmaking sucks, the servers are a mess. It takes you 4 or 5 attempts to connect to somebody, but you've got to wait 2 minutes for the server to actually crash it.
So are we still talking FIFA as if Siege all of a sudden?
This
Yeah.
is FIFA.
So this is purely FIFA,
Yeah.
and it is such a pay-to-win structure that if you don't put £1,000 into it, you're not going to get anything good.
Yeah.
It's a horrible structure, and the only thing that you can do.
Is it Ultimate Team, yeah?
Yeah, this is Ultimate Team, which is the only game mode that they focus in.
It's in your wallet.
Fair enough. The only thing you can do to get like better cards and stuff is to just grind like really bad. It's the whole issue that everybody had with Battlefront 2. Loot boxes
Great
will
game now.
win you the game, but if you want all of that stuff, you're gonna have to grind to get it, and it's not worth the frustration of having to grind and get angry at. That's it. So effectively, I've had enough. I've given up, and I'm looking for a new competitive game to play to take the place
Siege.
of FIFA and
Siege, because you can
Siege.
play it with friends.
Yes, exactly. Siege
And we're playing
sounds
the hell
good.
out of it at the moment again. So come join us on Siege.
I will. But yes. Anyway, let's move on. So, there have been some things that I've played over the last few days. Well, there's one thing in my list that I've played within the last few days that I want to mention when I have a go and give my list. So what we're going to be doing is each of us have 10 games. We consider those to be our games of the decade. For whatever reason, I'm going to explain some of mine when it comes to me, because there are some in here that I personally...
Yeah, I haven't written a script for any of mine, so I'm going to wing it a little bit.
I've not written a script, but I know there's reasons why I've done it. Some either being that it was so loved by people and I enjoyed it that it definitely makes it, and some that are just I played the absolute hell out of it and I loved every second of it. So there are those, and I'm gonna start with Roost. I really want to know what your top 10.
So I'm gonna go through till 9 and leave
Okay.
my 10th one for the end, because me and Leachy already know that our 10th one, our top game, is the same and maybe even a bit of a controversial topic, and will spark a very good discussion afterwards. So I will leave out
Okay.
my 10th until we have more time to talk about it.
Is that your favourite, or did that only
Yeah,
just make
my
the list?
top game, my
Okay.
favorite.
Okay.
But and I think Leachy agrees with me. Yeah, it'll spark a very good discussion because there's a lot to talk about around said game that I think a lot of people would have completely overlooked and won't even will be shocked to know that's even in the list. So
Okay. I'm now
leaving out that
interested.
one for now.
That's fine. We'll go with 9.
I'm gonna start with we've got, if I go up the list of the least of my top 10 up to place number 2, and then my top game will come later. But Witcher 3
Yeah.
is number 10, so that's pretty standard. I think a lot of people can appreciate that Witcher 3 is probably one of the best games of the decade.
Yes.
It's not a perfect game by all means, and it's not a game for everyone, but if you are an RPG fan, or even just a Witcher fan in general, absolutely fantastic game to play, very enjoyable.
There's no such thing as a perfect game.
No, there's not. Other than maybe this controversial one. Nah, that had its issues too.
I mean, speak for yourself, but Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
Oh, Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
Yeah, that definitely didn't make my list.
Neko Para Volume 1.
Okay, number 9.
Number 9 is Minecraft, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I have not really played much of Minecraft in recent years, but the effect it's had on the gaming community in this decade, just how popular it's become, the different uses it's been put to outside of just being a game. It's been used as the teaching method for young children. But I played Minecraft primarily back in its early beta stages. I think I jumped in right at the end of its alpha, played it throughout its beta, and then for about another year or two after its main release. And at that point, I'd been playing it for several years. So my interest on the game slowly started to dwindle away. Like the interest finally sort of left. But regardless of how I feel about the game now and the fact that I pretty much don't play it, it had to be in the list just because of the effect it's had over the many years. It is
I
one hell
don't
of a game.
think there is anybody in the community that has not heard of Minecraft. In a gaming community, even outside of a gaming community, there is nobody who has not heard of Minecraft. I think it made my list as well. We had to fact check this. The game officially released in 2011. So
Google says 2009, but Google is talking about a pre-release version that was released on a forum as an in-development thing. It's been dubbed as the pre-classic because it was out before even the classic mode was out. But we
had to fact check that.
Properly fact checked it. The official actual release of the game is 2011.
Yes, and everybody has more or less touched that game at some point. I mean, I played it for a long time, especially with mods. The modding community went to town on Minecraft, and they did some fantastic pieces. They did some really, really interesting mods, and I loved every single one that I'd played. It really gave a fresh element to that game. But even in its base form, even Classic was really enjoyable for a long time. People did sink a lot of hours into it, for good reason. And the game's not the best looking game in the world, but it works. It works so much.
It has a lot of charm to it.
Yeah, a lot of charm. Just down to the soft music it plays as you're wandering around. I think it's got fantastic sound. Like all the different sounds of you just doing things, punching trees and stuff. Although it doesn't look amazing, it's still quite immersive and it really pulls you in. And that game, fantastic. Fantastic. Sorry, I've taken over.
It's all right. So moving on to 8. I've got Battlefield 3 and 4. I've decided to lump them into one because there's not a whole lot of differences between the games. I honestly feel that 4 was just sort of a progression of 3, and it's on here for basically the exact same reason. So Battlefield 4, but I'm going to sort of tie 3 into it as well because my love for 4 sort of came from 3. But back when Battlefield 3 released, I spent so many hours. This was back on Xbox as well before. I played FPSs on PC, but I used to get home, start up my Xbox, and play Battlefield 3 for the next several hours before eating, and then play some more and go to bed. Like Battlefield 3 took over my life at one point, and then it basically became the same with Battlefield 4, only this time on PC, because it was between the release dates is when I truly got into PC gaming, and so then it became Battlefield 4 when that came out, and just I think although 4 obviously had its issues on release, after being primarily fixed, thank you Dice LA, it just became, for me personally, an incredible, just relaxed arcade shooter. I had other games, other competitive shooters that I played at the time, but if I wanted to just play some standard shooter that I didn't have to worry about ranks or remembering smokes and strategies and stuff like that, it was my go-to game for many, many years. I don't have 1 and 5 on because don't highly rate them as much. Controversial, maybe. A lot of people like Battlefield 1.
I don't think that's a controversial opinion. Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 were, for me, the peak of those games.
Yeah.
They were incredible.
So, moving on to 7, I've actually got Monster Hunter World.
Okay.
The PC release specifically, because I've only played it on PC, but it's my first entry into Monster Hunter. I tried Monster Hunter years and years ago on, I think it was a friend's PSP. I also tried it on my 3DS one time, only like the demo versions. I never went out and bought the game because every time I ever tried it, I just wasn't for me. I couldn't get into it. I didn't really enjoy it. I suppose the gameplay style wasn't something that I got into, but Monster Hunter World came out, and I gave that a purchase and never looked back. Absolutely phenomenal game. It's a really, really enjoyable game. It's a great solo experience, even better when you go on and do, hunts with friends. But yeah, that's definitely a very, very top release for me this decade was Monster Hunter World.
Still not played a Monster Hunter game.
If you're gonna play one, I would recommend Monster Hunter World. I know a lot of OG fans much prefer some of the other ones. I think Genesis is one of the more highly regarded ones. Don't quote me on that. I'm not an OG fan, so to speak. But for speaking from someone who recently got into the franchise, I would recommend Monster Hunter World as a fantastic in for the franchise. Okay. So moving on to the next one, I've got Skyrim, which I think is no surprise. I think there's very few people that could tell you that could try it
recently.
I've bought it multiple times. I buy it every year. Thank you, Lord Todd Howard. Please don't steal my family.
The money they've lost on Fallout 76 was more than made up on this year's Skyrim purchases, probably.
Oh yes, and I have played it almost every edition it has. I'll have you know, I've even played the Alexa version, which is actually an enjoyable game. Is that, like, speaking seriously, it's actually kind of cool. I'm so happy that they made that joke about themselves and then actually released it.
Brilliant.
on the Alexa. But I haven't played it on anything like the Switch, but I had it on my Xbox 360 when it first released and sunk many, many, many hours into it. I then later bought it on PC when I got into PC and wanted to, mod the hell out of it. And because of the version of it that I had, I was given Special Edition for free. So I didn't technically pay for that one, but yeah, I've also played Special Edition then when I was given that and modded the shit out of that one too.
Of course, that's what you do at Skyrim.
It's what you do, yeah. I mean, who doesn't want Thomas the Tank Engine instead of dragons? But yeah, so I think that's a pretty standard one, Skyrim. I think there's very
Yeah.
few people who could honestly say that Skyrim is a bad game. There are those out there that just don't like it, and there are many that prefer older entries in the series. I myself prefer Oblivion in almost every way. Oblivion is one of my all-time favorite games, full stop. So there are a lot of things that I prefer about Oblivion, but doesn't stop Skyrim from being a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
Next is another standard one. It's actually won Game of the Year this year, and that is Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. I am a fan of From Software games, and Sekiro is just From Software doing what From Software does, only with a bit more of a narrative this time around. Now, all the Dark Souls and things like that, obviously, they do have a narrative, but not a in-your-face narrative. The story is very world driven in Dark Souls games, but
Yeah.
Sekiro is very, here is your narrative, here is your named protagonist, and this is the reason why you're doing this. And yeah, Sekiro, the combat just feels so clean, so smooth. There are games that work in similar ways, but few that pull it off as elegantly as Sekiro does. So next, I've got a CS:GO.
Really? CS:GO?
Yes.
CS:GO's on my list.
So I don't play CS:GO anymore.
No.
CS:GO has been slipping for the past few years, but I would be lying if I didn't put it on the list, considering how many hours I put into CS:GO over the years. I've spent thousands of hours on CS:GO. I played competitive Counter-Strike almost exclusively for many years. It was basically the first-person shooter I played, and pretty much the only game I played, unless someone gave me a reason to go and play something else at the time.
Yeah.
If I was on my PC, I was playing competitive Counter-Strike. Not just that, I followed the pro scene. I watched every major, every minor, like all the tournaments I could. So it really took over my life, basically. So
Well, it's how we met.
yeah, it is playing CS:GO. So that had to be on there for that reason. I dabble in it. I go back every once in a while. I play a game or two with some friends, but I don't consistently play it anymore. And I've never been able to get back into it. Still know all my smokes and stuff, but
That's because it doesn't change all that much, to be fair.
yeah, it's like I go back a few months later and I'm like, hey, I still remember my smokes for this map. Woo!
I can actively say that this and League of Legends did not make my list. Although they were probably some of the most hours that I put into games.
Yeah.
I think
But,
I completely understand why it's there. I mean,
yeah.
League of Legends and CS:GO are the biggest
Competitive
esports
scenes. Yeah.
competitive scenes across the internet. They will be for quite a long time. I think, there are other games that are coming up there, but CS:GO is from just the original Counter-Strike. That's the original competitive game. When they turned it into Global Offensive, then everybody played CS:GO. Everybody. It's not massive.
Source sparked an interest in a lot more people. So you got your OG days, your 1.6, but that was a very sort of a hardcore following.
Yeah, Source was where I got into the series.
A lot of people played it, and there was the competitive scene was just sort of being born and becoming a big thing. And then Source released, and that sort of really branched out a bit and brought a lot more people in. And then I think Global Offensive is when it really became a mainstream game for the PC community. As competitive as it is, it became what I would personally classify as mainstream at that point. And I dabbled in. I never played 1.6. I played Source a little bit towards the end of its lifespan. Leachy here repeatedly nagging me to come and play it, and I didn't like the game. Like I couldn't get into it. I'd go on and I'd play and I'd have a little bit of fun, but I was just like, oh, I don't understand the hype. And then Global Offensive came out, and I felt the same. I was still a bit like, I don't know, it's not really necessarily for me. And I played it a bit, and then just one day something clicked, and this. After that, I put thousands of hours into the game.
I think with CS:GO and the whole Counter-Strike series, you don't really know it until you become a PC gamer. At least that was my experience with it. I was quite late to the PC scene. I think it was about 2014, 2015 that I bought my first computer and started playing computer games. And I bought a computer because I wanted to play DayZ. I watched so many videos and stuff about DayZ, and CS:GO was one of those games that when you start getting into the PC community, you start being asked to play certain games that the community adore. That will always be known, like PC game will always be known as those were the original games. Counter-Strike is one of those games.
Yes, without a doubt. So, moving on to the next one, I've actually got a Dark Souls 3. So, back onto the From Software trend. I dabbled in Dark Souls in the past, but Dark Souls 3 was the one that really gripped me, really pulled me into the love-hate relationship that is a FromSoft title. As in, you love the game, it fucking hates you, and will do everything it can to fuck you over. But
that's where the sense of achievement comes in.
Dark Souls 3 is another one of those games where I've put hundreds and hundreds of hours into. I mean, I believe we mentioned this in a previous podcast about me losing my Dark Souls 3 character save.
Yes.
Well, that character alone was about 200 hours. That was like New Game Plus 3 or 4, something like that. I played the hell out of it, but I go back every once in a while. I always go back and dabble in it and play some more. But yeah, I had to put it on there because it's a game that the amount of times I sit down, wonder what to play, and I just go and play Dark Souls. It's just what I wanted to do.
Fair.
And the penultimate, but the last one for now, is actually Rainbow Six Siege. So basically the game that pulled me from Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
I suppose is a good way of saying it. I moved over to Siege. I played that for a few years. I actually moved back to CS for a little while, back to CS:GO, and abandoned Siege a bit, and then gone back to Siege a second time. And although I stopped playing a couple of years ago after the server issues got really bad, and I sort of got out of the competitive scene in general. Up until recently, I wasn't really playing anything like Counter-Strike or Siege or Overwatch. I was playing a lot more casually. I think that's when I primarily started playing things like Monster Hunter and Dark Souls, and I got into a lot more of a sort of single player or just fun with friends kind of scene. But I've been getting back into Rainbow Six Siege again, as you've probably noticed. Me and Leachy talking a lot about it recently. But just the amount of times that I've gone back to it and the amount of enjoyment I've had from that game over the years meant it was up there. It has to be one of my top games of the decade. So apart from the last one, which we'll talk about at the end, move on. That's my list.
Okay, Leachy, come on, enlighten us with your list. I'm looking forward to this one. I reckon there's going to be a couple of times where us two go.
I mean, there's quite a few on mine that are just going to be repeats.
I think I've got a few on mine that are going to be the same.
So yeah, I'll leave my number 10. Same reason.
Yeah.
So starting at number 9 is actually, well, I'd like to just mention mine aren't actually in any particular order. I just went through my list of what I've played and just kind of wrote them as I went. So my number 1 isn't necessarily number 1, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So starting at 9 is actually the game I'm playing right now, Sette Corsa Competizione. Mainly because
you got to say
that's
it.
How it's pronounced.
Got to say it like an Italian.
Yeah, I think that is correct.
Assetto Corsa Competizione.
I don't have enough arse hair to properly nail the Italian. primarily because I've tried a few different racing sims over the last couple of years, actually. Started off with the original Assetto Corsa and the Formula One games, primarily drifting on Assetto Corsa. But then the more I played Formula One, the more I enjoyed racing as opposed to just going sideways around the track. Which is coincidentally what I spend a lot of time doing, but yeah, that's because I suck. But yeah, ACC is the first game that truly, I feel like it has a very good feedback system, and not in the sense of the force feedback, but you can really tell when you yourself are improving. It's got so many different ratings for different aspects of race driving that you can actively see as those are ticking up that you yourself are improving. And like, I really like that feedback, and it's just great fun to drive. It's one of the better sims, I think, honestly. Beats out the Formula One games. They're very arcadey, truth be told. R
That
Factor
was
2, which
very
is a
Welsh
different
of you.
game entirely.
Hey, leave off the Welshness.
Truth be
but yeah,
Cheap on you.
for me at the moment, my favourite sim racing game has to be Assetto Corsa Competizione, and that's why it made my list. It's actually very new, barely out of early access, kind of new. It's like version 1.2 at the moment. But yeah, so it made my list just because it gives you that feedback of you are improving, and I really like that. For me, number 8 is Mortal Kombat 11.
Yeah,
Was
that's-
never a fan of the side-on fighting games, or even just like Tekken has the 3D arenas where you can actively move around them. But I wasn't a fan of that either. I just wasn't a fan of fighting games. But I ended up watching while we were at Insomnia last August. I ended up watching Mortal Kombat being played at like a, I guess it was semi-pro would probably be the best category to put them in.
it was a pro-am tournament.
Yeah. So I ended up watching those guys playing Mortal Kombat, and it was just like there was something about it. It really tickled my fancy.
I think
And
it should be noted as an honourable mention for me as well, because although not on my list, yeah, I've recently been playing that and thoroughly enjoying it as well.
and again, it's one of those ones that like I don't think it's the fan favorite game at all. So like there are people that have been into their Mortal Kombat games for years, and you know, 11 doesn't come close for those guys. But for me, it's the game that sort of brought me into that kind of style of game.
Yeah, that's
And-
why certain of mine made my list, was for those sorts of reasons. Is they're the game that piqued my interest to a certain type of game.
And to be honest, who doesn't love to main Liu Kang and bicycle kick your mate into a corner repeatedly? It's just it's great.
I know where
It's
you
very
live.
fun.
I know where you live. That sound haunts my nightmares. I got him back. Don't worry. I discovered a Baraka combo.
Yeah,
that
it's
might as
effectively
well
the
have
same
been the
thing,
same
but-
thing. And I got my revenge where I was
Yeah.
able to just Baraka bloody uppercut spam him, and he started going, "Oh, is this what it feels like when I Liu Kang kick you?" And I'm like, yes. Ah!
You're like describing an old style martial arts film with the terrible dubbing. All I can picture is two Japanese like martial arts masters just like, "Oh, I can't believe you've come back. Is this how it feels?" But it's really badly dubbed. Like, yes, it is. And now I've come to defeat you again. Ha ha! Like, that's
like-
all
yeah,
I
like
can
The
picture.
dub stops, but the mouth keeps moving
Yeah.
for like several seconds after.
You are already dead.
Oh,
Oh,
I...
Shinderu!
Money.
For
Brilliant.
example.
So-
Brilliant.
Yeah, I had a lot of laughs playing Mortal Kombat, beating the shit out of and getting battered by Rooster.
And then they play
Never
some
played it
Mortal
online
Kombat.
against anybody else. Nice. So yeah, Mortal Kombat made my list. My number 7, again, no particular order. This is actually one of my favorite games. Is Rainbow Six Siege.
Mhm.
Started off. only ever played casual. I was a massive casual gimp. Like just never ever wanted to play ranked. But then the more I played casual, it kind of like started thinking, pretty fun. Let's try out ranked. And yeah, that there was a period of sweatiness where
Yeah.
Rainbow Six ranked was basically all we played.
One thing I sort of didn't end up mentioning on my segment about Siege, but I think is worth noting is the fantastic post-release support and content. It's got its issues with not being fixed, like server issues and things like that. But as far as the yearly sort of operations, I can't remember what they call them off the top of my head now. But with each year, and they're bringing in the new countries, the new operators, the new maps, and reworking and redesigning maps that don't fit the competitive scene, I think that alone merits
Yeah, it does. It
why
does
it's such
get
a
a lot
highly
of
regarded game.
long-term love. But yeah, eventually the server issues did get a little bit too much. I got sick and tired of, I'd be holding an angle and then this guy would appear all in one frame. This dude would appear on my screen and I would drop dead without a bullet ever being fired by this other dude. But then you'd watch the kill cam back and it could have just been that the kill cams were incorrect, but it was almost consistent that this was the issue. What actually happened was like the enemy would step out of his cover, he would spot you, he'd move his aim onto your head or whatever, open fire, and in the kill cam, it seemed like you had a good 3 or 4 seconds to actually react to the situation and try and fight back. But when you're playing, all that you really got was, hey, there's a guy. Oh, I'm dead. Like it was all in like the space of like 1 or 2 frames. So I took about, I think, a year and a half, like no joke. I missed an entire 4 seasons, which are 3 months each, and I missed 2 seasons of the current
following year,
I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, literally over a year and a half I took out from the game. Like didn't even play casual. I didn't play the game. I think for a long time it wasn't installed. But I came back more recently and the game was undergoing a lot of DDoSing. And so what Ubisoft decided to do was to limit the impact that DDoSing was having. They were limiting how many games were being played on one server. I think it used to be 3 per server. Now it's 1 per server. And although that leads to longer wait times for a match, the quality of the game is so much better because the servers handle 1 match okay, like perfectly fine. But when it's branching out and it's busier and there's 3 games going on per server, that's when you were getting the issues of, all in one frame, a guy would appear and dome you. But that just generally doesn't happen anymore, and I'm having so much more fun playing it again now that someone could peek you, but you have an actual ability to react to them and maybe kill them before they kill you. Whereas that went away at one point. Like that wasn't something you could do at one point or another. And so I've got a love for the game again. Been playing it a lot. I'm not really sure on how many hours we've sank in recently, but it's definitely more than the last year and a half.
Yeah.
So yeah, that made my list. And probably if we did another list in say 5 years' time, that one would probably make it too.
Yeah, would probably stay there.
So moving on, my number 6 is Sekiro as well. Not the game that got me into FromSoft titles, but
You've gone silent. I think your mic's cut off.
From the game because I was struggling with a boss.
Oh.
No,
You're going to have to repeat that, Leachy. Your mic cut off.
Oh.
Go back
See,
to
that's really annoying because this entire time, my little icon in the top left has been telling me I'm transmitting.
Oh, no, you definitely weren't. You said the game. You said about
not the title that got you into FromSoft and then cut off.
And then cut off.
Fair enough. So yeah, not the game that got me into From Software titles at all, but in my opinion, it's one of the better ones. I don't dislike the Dark Souls series, and Bloodborne's pretty decent too, but Sekiro is, well, I like a good narrative, so without having to, I know it's there in Dark Souls, but you've got to delve into the lore a little bit more.
Yeah.
But with Sekiro, it's a little bit more spoon-fed to you, so it's a little bit more my thing, to be honest. Admittedly, still haven't finished the game because I was struggling with a boss. But I'm like, it's an optional boss, but in my mindset, there's nothing optional about it. Like, it's a boss.
You have to beat it.
I
Yeah.
have to beat them. Yeah. I went into the fight a little bit unprepared. And so I am struggling with it. But then I took a break off from the game. I guess I just kind of put it down one night and just didn't pick it up again. It was not like, one particular thing that I went, screw this boss, I'm never going to play again. It was just one day I put the game down for the night and never picked it up again. I tried to play it again more recently and got absolutely cheesed by this boss. Like, I was barely getting in 2 hits and I was getting absolutely ruined. So I think what I need to do is just fast travel to a different area, fight some normal mobs for a little while, get back into the swing of things.
There's
And
the
then...
guy in the hub which you can fight, who's specifically there as a training dummy.
There is that, yeah.
Doing a couple of rounds on him is usually helpful.
But yeah, it's a brutal game and it will fuck you up if you let it. But it's very rewarding when you do conquer the boss that's been giving you grief, and you beat the shit out of him. That's usually what happens. I find you'll have a boss that has given you trouble for so long, and then eventually you just come on one night and you just cheese them. It's just like, yeah, why was that?
Like
so
you with Medea.
Yeah, Medea from Dark Souls 3. that was hell. Until it wasn't.
Several attempts. He died at
Easily
least
up in the
13,
30s.
14.
Yeah. Nah, man. Like,
higher than that.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time dying to Medea.
Yeah, I came on drunk one day and beat it first time. Literally, came on drunk one day and beat it first time, and just he sent me the picture of the boss defeat message, and it was just like yes, and he was smashed.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's my favourite story of all these podcasts so far. I know it's only episode 3, but I don't think there's going to be a better story than that in the next however many we do. I really don't. Yeah. That's perfect.
It is a good one.
So Sekiro made my list just because great narrative, great visual style. Yes. And it's got the From Software formula, man. It's brutal. It'll fuck you up, but when you fuck them up,
a little bit of a weeb tickle.
Yeah. Because I think I went that extra step to weebiness as well, and I've got the audio's in Japanese, and I have the subtitles on because
yeah. You've got the flat palm stroke.
But yeah, moving on. So my number 5, again, no particular order, is Battlefield 3, but again, also 4. I was gonna have them separate, but yeah, they're very similar. So Battlefield 3 was, again, I played it on Xbox 360, and just easier times, to be honest. I wasn't working, I was in school, and it was great. You came home, you fired up the Xbox, you played however many matches of Battlefield 3 you were feeling that day. And it wasn't perfect. It had, half the time you couldn't fucking revive your teammate because just sticking the defib to their face didn't work.
Yeah.
As a primary medic player, that was frustrating. But whatever, it was what it was. But Rush on Battlefield 3 was like not as great as Bad Company 2, but it was still up there. It was still well built. Yes. And some of the maps, man, like Sen Crossing was personally one of my favorite maps. And of course, no Shark Canals.
No Shark Canals gives me a tingle.
Yeah, so Battlefield 3 was great and makes the list primarily for nostalgia reasons, because honestly, Battlefield 4 was better built. Not at first. I'm not covering up this fucking shenanigans the DICE thought they were pulling when Battlefield 4 first released. I couldn't play it for the first 12 fucking months. I was gonna say 6, but then I realized no, it was longer than that. So yeah, the first year, the first 3 months the game worked. Then they claimed to fix it and it broke it for me. And I just DirectX issues every time.
Oh, yes.
I couldn't play Battlefield 4 for so damn long, and it was frustrating for me because it's one of the primary games I built my gaming PC for. Up until then, I'd been playing on a bloody pre-built Dell thing that could barely run Battlefield 2142 back in the day, which is sort of where I started with Battlefield. Bad Company 2 was where I primarily got into the series, but 3 definitely cemented it as one of my favorite franchises. And 4 was where I really sunk some PC time into the series.
Yeah.
When I could, because like I said, the first year of Battlefield 4 was a hot mess. It was bad. To be honest, it was rescued by Dice LA.
Yep.
They saved that game, and maybe even the series. Who knows? Like if Battlefield 4 hadn't been recovered, who knows?
Quick side note for anyone who doesn't know, Dice LA have recently been sort of have branched out from Dice, and the studio is going to go under renaming and rebranding, and will be making their own series.
Yeah,
Ooh.
not that we really know what that is yet, but
we don't know anything about it. But yeah, just on a side note, Dice LA is no longer Dice LA, and they are their own studio under EA.
I'd like to see another mainstream Medal of Honor game, but
Yeah.
So yeah, Battlefield 4 makes the list primarily for its time after the first year, when it was actually playable and was getting a good stream of content coming in, and patches fixing the main issues. Something that for some reason just kind of fell away. Like Dice I don't know what's wrong with them when it comes to Battlefield 5, but they lost their touch, to say the least.
Yeah.
But yeah, Battlefield 4 was one of my primary games when I first built my PC, so had to be on my list. So my number 4 is Monster Hunter World as well. Same story for me, pretty much. Had tried the game out on same friend's PSP. Wasn't a fan. I tried. To be fair, I tried it for a little bit longer because I think I borrowed the game off him and played it on my own PSP for a little while.
Over his house.
Yeah, and I just, at the time, the kind of games I was into, it just wasn't something that tickled my fancy at all. It was just, quite frankly, a little bit too hardcore for me. Just the whole fucking, you've got 20 minutes to find and kill this monster that has an insane amount of HP compared to you. And yeah, it just wasn't my thing. I got a little bit filtered.
You got filtered.
Yeah, straight up, I got filtered out of the series. But Monster Hunter World was coming out, and I picked up on the hype train a little bit of all the marketing. And do you know what? My mindset has changed in the time since I last tried the game, or the series, I should say. And so I decided that, I'm going to give this one a try. And
yeah,
very glad that I did. And honestly, if it's something you've been contemplating trying, give it a bash. Like, if you can pick it up, especially like on a sale or something on the cheap, it's well worth every penny. Because although again, it's not a game I finished, it's something that I eventually put down. But that's a bit of a running trend with me. That is not that doesn't really give an indication of the quality of a game when it comes to what I play, because I go through stages of playing different things, and I might not touch, say, Monster Hunter for months, but it's still a game I hold very dear in a way.
And we'll always go back to.
Yeah, it is something I usually have installed, probably do, but I'm not 100% at the moment. I got to be honest. But yeah, great game, and especially if you've got people to play it with, that much better, because, well, it didn't happen to me, but there's nothing better than your mate saying that he's going to do some bloody skill or whatever, and just getting absolutely charged down and targeted by the main monster. It's hilarious. Yeah,
so,
again.
Do you have your recording software recording the Discord?
Yes.
Visually.
Yes.
Well then, I'm going to find a Monster Hunter video of mine.
It's the one I'm referencing.
While Leachy continues.
I'll put it below.
Okay.
Into the chat as well, because we're nearly at an hour already. We're literally 59 minutes in.
Let's move on a bit quickly then. But yeah, I'll chuck you the link to the video. It's well worth a watch. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I'll post it for anybody who does watch it on YouTube into the description below, so you can watch it.
Okay, so yeah, that was that was my number 4, Monster Hunter World. Number 3, Dark Souls 3. Was the game that got me into From Software titles. I tried the original Dark Souls back in the day. Like when it first came out, my brother didn't quite know what he was getting himself into, so bought the game. I tried it. He tried it. Yeah, we both fucking hated it. I still don't quite like the fact that it's an unguided game. Like, I would much rather have a more evident, this is where you need to go. If that was the only bit of hand-holding they did, I'd be okay with that. Just, this is where you should go next. Dark Souls 3 doesn't bother me as much in that regard because, I played it through with Rooster, who'd already done most of the game. So we knew where we were going. But yeah, Dark Souls 1, my experience with that, I went to try and fight these skeletons down in the bottom left. Bad idea. Don't do that when you first play Dark Souls 1. Again, another game that completely filtered me out. I didn't know what I was getting into, and I hated every minute of it because it was unlike anything I'd ever played before. You walk into one little skeleton and he absolutely ruins you.
Games like that,
it's just not
require
something
you
you
build
used
an
to.
understanding of them before you can truly enjoy them, and
Yeah.
it may have taken a while to build that understanding.
Yeah, and so Dark Souls 2 I tried, but Dark Souls 3, it was just coming out, and I thought, you know what, been a while. I'm gonna get into this as a new player to the series because I hadn't really played 1 or 2 properly, and so I thought I'll give it a bash. Little bit frustrating at first, again, it's still quite a brutal game. I mean, the first fucking 10 minutes includes you fighting this huge fucking like statue dude, or whatever the hell he is. So yeah, my first hour of the game, I was still kind of on the fence. I was like, yeah, I still don't quite know how I feel about this series. It's a little bit much for me. But then, I don't know, I woke up one morning and I played the game and I just had this realization that except for the very rare occasions where like an enemy weapon clips through a wall and kills you, it does happen, but it's not that often. Most of the time, if you die, it's your own bloody fault. You've run out of stamina and you've tried to get one extra hit in or something, or it's that one extra hit that causes you to run out of stamina. Most of the time, if you wind up dead, you probably did something wrong. And once you realize that, and you realize it's not the game screwing you, it's fucking you screwing you. I find you get a much better understanding and appreciation for what the series entails. And I went on, I never new gamed my character because I was a pleb and managed to lose my save as well.
After ridiculing me.
Yeah, after many hours of laughing at you for it. But I have finished the game twice, and I have a character going through it now. I just haven't played it recently, but it is the game that sort of, I don't know, it made me take a step back and realize that you fucked up. Like, you were the reason that you died there. And it gives you that appreciation in other games too, that most of the time, if you died, you probably did wrong. You can't sit there and blame your bloody teammates for not holding an angle or, for laggy servers or whatever. Most of the time, it's you that fucked up. And Dark Souls was the game that gave me that kind of understanding. Mm-hmm. So moving on to my number 2 is Armor 3. Now, Rooster will tell you just how much I hyped Armor. When Armor 3 was announced, I didn't shut the fuck up about it.
He really did.
Because I tried Armor 2 Free Edition, was not a fan. It was like very graphically dated because of when I was picking it up. I didn't like the fact that animations were basically you molesting your gun, and that was considered a reload. I dabbled in DayZ, the mod for Armor 2, and honestly, that was what got me into playing Armor, because I bought Armor 2, I bit the bullet, I understood that, it looks like shit, and it runs like shit, and the reloads look shit, but, I'll play DayZ. Honestly, I played like half an hour of DayZ mod, and the rest of my Armor 2 time was spent playing Armor 2, because I sort of learned what it was about, and yeah, it looked shit, and it ran like shit, but I learned what the game was about, and I took a bigger liking to the military sandbox than I did the zombie game. Mm-hmm. Which then, when Armor 3 was announced, I was like straight on. I was driving that fucking hype train. Like I was leading the charge.
He was.
Because it just looked so good. And to be honest, I personally think it delivered. I think
Yes.
Arma 3 is fantastic. I have, I think, close to 1,000 hours in it, which ain't much compared to some other people with other games. I've got about the same in CSGO. But yeah, it's just the scope of the Arma games and just everything you can do in there. I'll never forget crashing our white van full of perfectly legal goods into a tiny fence. We got ejected from the vehicle, and I'm like, that's weird. Like, why can't I get back in? Why did we get ejected? Then it dawned on me, when you get ejected from a vehicle in Arma, it's about to explode. Then it exploded before I could run away. And we lost so much money and so much perfectly legal goods.
Perfectly legal goods in our Altis life run.
Yeah.
We lost that day.
And that was the end of that career. So yeah, Arma 3 had to be in the list. And although it hasn't officially been announced, Arma 4, fucking choo-choo bitches. Just Arma 4. If it ends up with the same engine that DayZ is now running, Arma 4 will be the best Arma has ever been, in my opinion.
Yes.
And finally, my number one, without, we missed out number 10, but number one is CSGO. It made my list as well. It was a game I was pretty hyped for before it even released. I ended up receiving it as a birthday present from an ex-girlfriend. About the only useful thing she ever did for me.
Wow. That's it. Just go for the jugular, like.
Yeah. So CSGO made it because primarily the game that got me into competitive shooters.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, I played Counter-Strike Source, but it was like only ever casual servers. It was whatever the community server browser would throw at me, pretty much. So my first true competitive shooter experience came from CSGO. Basically, the community we're all part of now was built around CSGO. Like it's where most of us met.
Pretty much our entire Discord stems from people we've met and played.
Yeah,
with
like
in CS:GO.
like obviously I met Lewis. Listeners aren't gonna know who Lewis is, but
No.
I met Lewis through Arma. Actually, was the game I met Lewis on. But CS:GO was the game that sort of properly turned us all into friends. It was the game I started playing primarily with everyone. And
I think I remember because I met Lewis through CS:GO, and then I remember him saying, "Oh, some people I play Arma are going to come play," which were you two.
Yeah.
And then...
So I met Lewis through Arma. Didn't then play much of anything else with him until one day we all jumped on CS:GO, and it kind of just went from there. We went from playing like once in a blue moon, and it just kind of we were playing every day pretty much.
Yeah, it snowballed, and the community grew. Our Discord grew. We brought more and more people, friends.
Yeah, there's just so many people that we've met, and not all of them are still around, but it was nice when they were there.
Yeah.
And at one point there was always consistently a 5-man team that you could play with, and it was so much fun. Like the laughs and hysterics that I had playing CS:GO over like the period of about 2 or 3 years actually stemmed off a little bit now. Honestly, I think I was the first who got bored, and I put the game down, and I could go without ever playing it again. I think at this point, primarily because Siege has taken up the role that CS:GO had for me. But it's still a game that there's no denying the like 800 or whatever hours I've put into it. My Steam says over 1,000, but I'm very bad at leaving games open and then going AFK. So,
Steam library lies.
Yeah, don't listen to that.
In Discord, still playing Assetto Corsa.
Oh yeah, I'm on the pause menu. Case in point. But yeah, CS:GO was on there for me just because of the memories and the community that has basically been built purely around that game. Yeah. And even though we've branched out and like some of you plebs are playing League of all things,
not anymore.
Yeah, there's still some good times I had playing CS:GO, and
Yeah.
every now and then I try it and realise why I put it down. But
Yeah, without fail.
yeah, so CS:GO for me had to be on there,
That's
and
fair.
that is other than number 10, which we'll get to at some point. Yeah, that's my list.
Okay.
So, as you may have noticed, me and Leachy basically the same person. I mean, have you ever seen us in the same room together?
Yes.
Go damn.
I've seen photos and videos of you two. Anybody who doesn't know them, they are childhood friends. They've known each other for years and years, and I'm pretty sure
Too
you
many.
guys live like 15 minutes away from each other or something like
We
that.
do, yes.
Yeah. So that's, trust me, they've been in the same room together.
Yeah, I'm best man and maid of honor at Roosters and Tay's wedding. So.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I still don't have an invite. Anyway, okay, can I have a go?
No,
Yeah.
fuck off.
No, okay. An hour and 10 minutes. We've hit an hour and 10 minutes. Yay!
That's right. We may split this up one into two parts.
Yeah, maybe. And
We'll see what happens.
keep people in suspense. So,
Yeah.
my list. Everything. I've obviously played everything on it. There are some things in this list that impacted me significantly, like emotionally, and just
Go.
there are some cracking games in here, but they're not, as I said earlier, they're not perfect. But I'm going to start with my bottom 5 in no particular order, and then kind of my top 5 in sort of an order, but my mind keeps changing because it's so difficult. But so my number 10, and you're going to make sounds at this one, was Call of Duty Black Ops, the first one.
Oh, not going to make
Not
it on.
something
Loved
I
that game.
expected.
Absolutely
The original
loved
Black
the
Ops,
original
yeah.
Black Ops.
This is the first Black Ops, yeah.
Black Ops was a fantastic
Yeah,
game.
not a bad choice.
It's that game was so good. It was still when I was playing a lot of console, and I thought the story for it was fantastic. The multiplayer.
When
yeah.
was that released?
That was 2011. That was released.
I could have sworn it was earlier than that.
No, because I wanted to
Later,
see
depends
where
how you look at it, yeah.
Modern Warfare 2 came, because Modern
Yeah.
Warfare 2 for me is a better game than Black Ops.
But not
But it
this
wasn't
decade.
yeah.
But it wasn't this decade. It was 2009. But Black Ops, in and of itself, the story was fantastic. Even the like small little top-down, little like platform shooter was a lot of fun. I can't remember it,
yeah.
but it
The
had
little arcadey thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
It. I think Zombies was the best it had ever been at Black Ops. I think it went downhill from Black Ops onwards. The multiplayer was fantastic. That whole game for that franchise is either the best or the second best.
It
Call of
has
Duty.
probably the most memorable menu music.
Absolutely, it's got the most memorable campaign as well. In
Thanks
my
for that,
opinion.
by the way. It's going to be stuck in my head for the rest of it.
I'll quickly move on.
Thanks.
The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
I mean,
Any RPG lover would have to say Witcher 3, I think.
that game was revolutionary. It was incredible. The story for it was great. The character Geralt of Rivia, we've gone into much detail about The Witcher in the last episode with the series, but the game is fantastic. It's an interesting one as well. Since the series came out, and because it's now on the Game Pass, all quite close to each other, there are more concurrent players for The Witcher than what there were at the game's release.
Yeah.
Which is that...
It's the most popular now than it's ever been.
Yeah. That statement by itself is incredible. That just goes to show how good that game is. And its controls are a little clunky, and all of that, but I won't go into The Witcher because we've gone into it previously. I'll just move on from that. I love The Witcher, but yeah.
Great choice.
Mass Effect 2.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes.
Mass Effect 2 was an incredible leap forward. Mass Effect 1 was so good. Don't get me wrong. That game was awesome.
Yes. It was a game that I saw many times back in Blockbuster, God rest its
Yeah.
soul, but never picked up. I was like, I'm not a sci-fi person. I don't think I'll like this. How fucking wrong I was. I finally picked it up,
Same
and Mass Effect is one
story.
of the best RPG series I've ever
Yes.
played.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, Mass Effect 1 was so good. It was so good. And then Mass Effect 2,
It just took what it did and improved it. I
yeah,
feel.
my mind was blown playing it. I loved that game. The whole story of it, you know, you're coming back to life because of a corporation that's pretty corrupt and is all...
Here's a big question for you both.
Yeah.
Shepherd or Femme Shepherd?
Ooh.
I always went, well, I think my Mass Effect 1 Shepard was male, but I think from 2 onwards, because I didn't continue my save for whatever reason from 1 to 2. I think I was Femme Shep.
I
What about you, Rebecca?
I stayed male Shep.
Now, the second one, default look, or did you make him look how you wanted him to look?
I did.
I always defaulted.
I played it twice, like the series the whole way through. My first
Fair
playthrough
enough.
was default. My second playthrough, I tried to make him look like me. Of course, he did not look anything like me. But yeah, because I played through. Yeah, because I played through all of them. I've played through all of them twice now.
Fair.
But they were always male Shepherd. I never went femme Shep. No particular reason. But that game, Mass Effect 2 was really, really good. I loved Mass Effect 3. It's just that the community was very let down by the ending.
Yeah, good game, terrible ending.
Yeah.
Do you know, not widely received, right? But I like Andromeda. It was what I was primarily playing until the Outer Worlds came out.
Yeah. I enjoyed
Andromeda. The only
Andromeda.
thing that peeled me off Andromeda.
I understand why people didn't like it. It was quite boring at times, and
It just had funny faces.
yeah. But I think for narratively with Andromeda, it was kind of like you were really excited because you got to see this new world, and you know you played the Mass Effects, and it felt like it was building up to something for so long until it still felt like it was building up to something 3/4 of the way through the game, and it's just like, well, it's not really building up to anything now, is it? Yeah, okay. So I can understand why a lot of people weren't too pleased with that game. But I'm going to shift on from Mass Effect.
Cool.
Grand Theft Auto 5 is... Yes, that is definitely up there. I've bought that game 3 times.
Yeah, I think I had it twice. I had it on 360 and then PC.
I had it on 360, Xbox One and PC.
Only had it on PC and was not a huge fan, if I'm honest.
So I got it midnight release when it first came out. When I was at uni, yeah, because I loved GTA 4. I loved San Andreas, and when I heard that it was coming back into San Andreas, and I had to get the game, and you know I loved it.
San Andreas is overrated.
Let's calm down with the controversial opinions in this video.
Spicy.
Settle down there, Leach. I just said I don't like GTA 5, but what the fuck did you just say?
I'm sorry. What I said was San Andreas is overrated.
I'll quickly move on before Rooster comes
Leach,
over
you will
there
not be
in
making
15
it
minutes
to the next.
and murders you.
Yeah.
Narratively, I really enjoyed it. I think the way that they captured the era was fantastic, as they do with all Grand Theft Auto games. They really capture the era that they're focusing on.
I'm excited for 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me
As much
too.
as I didn't like 5, I am excited for 6 because it's probably the first GTA that I didn't get into.
That's fair.
I don't think it's a bad game. It just, I don't know. I
I
couldn't
think
keep playing it.
the content that they released for it, and the fact that there are so many people still playing it to this day, shows a lot of that game's general how good and how replayable the game is.
Yeah.
In terms of its
See,
online.
I wasn't a huge fan of GTA Online. I've played the campaign a bunch of times. I think I've finished it 3 or 4 times now. And I've gone to the extent of milking the hell out of the assassination missions and how to make your characters the most money. But GTA Online just I don't know. I never really played it with people.
Yeah.
And leaving a garage and getting blown up by a fucking attack alley was never my idea of fun.
No, that's fair. I remember I played as soon as the online mode came on. I played and played it and played it and played it and played it, and I loved GTA Online. It was definitely annoying, and there were some decisions.
I remember my main issue now that I think about it.
What?
I like doing the online missions where you have to go and like collect an item or kill a bunch of people or whatever. And all anyone ever wanted to do on that game was do the goddamn races. And I'm like, I don't play GTA to race as much as it is a car game in a way. I like the missions.
Yeah.
And it was like you could, if you were queuing for missions, you couldn't ever find one. You'd find a race in an instant, but it wasn't what I wanted to play the game for.
No, of course.
Yeah.
And that was my primary thing. Like, I haven't even finished all the heists, though, as it goes, because I kind of just went off the game before heists even came out, and so I've done, like, the first two, and that's it.
The heists were good. I'm definitely not going to take away from that. But I think, because I played with a group of people, I never had the problems that maybe somebody playing, with them playing the game themselves or with one friend, you'd run into those kind of matchmaking issues. You can still run into those matchmaking issues. You always were able to. I think when Heist came out, they were a fantastic addition that brought a lot more players back. But over the years, they've added these bits of content that have brought the community back. Most recently, the casino update that brought a lot of people back, and that gave the whole game a completely new element. It was a lot of fun to go to the casino and waste time there.
It just tells me people got a gambling problem, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I do. I know that.
we all know that.
But yes, GTA 5 was on there for sure, and then Minecraft as my bottom 5. Minecraft as well. That game, as I said earlier, fantastic.
Heavily influenced the gaming industry.
Yeah, massively, and is still to this day played a lot.
Yeah.
That's true.
2011. And even before 2011 to now, it is still probably one of the most played and watched games. Without a doubt. I mean, the content that they're bringing into it, although they're small bits of content, they bring so much variety into their content that it brings people back. And then the modding community, as I said earlier, took it full swing. And you can play Minecraft for 4 years with different mods, and it'll feel like a completely different game every time you pick it up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any game has ever captured the imagination of the
maybe
gaming
I missed
community.
a trick there, because both Minecraft and Skyrim are not games I hold like on a high pedestal. Great games, but not something I hold very highly. But they're also games I never really bothered to mod. I played Skyrim basically vanilla, and Minecraft I barely ever modded.
Modding is the way
I'm
forward.
a PC gamer, and I'm just like, I don't mod. I think I'm missing the point.
Are you really a PC gamer then? You're a gamer that plays on a PC.
See, even it's the small details. So Skyrim is a good example. Of course, your arrow quiver is always on your back, but I got a mod which put it kind of on your lower back horizontally.
Yes.
That alone was one of my favourite mods, and it was a visual mod.
How about the dual wielding one where it allowed you to have dual blades either on either hip, either back?
Oh, stop! Please stop it, because that's just.
Really
I can't get into that game again. I've done it too many times. I am sick of getting too into it, going to the Thieves Guild, becoming a Nightingale, and then just running the same pissing character who's good at archery. Like, I can't play the game in any other way, because that's the most fun.
Does this ring a bell? Fniz.
What?
Fniz sexy move?
What?
You never had the
No.
Fniz mods?
No.
He worked with, it was all animation based.
Okay.
And things like that, and it completely altered how all of the rigging and movement worked, and it's basically one of the best mods you'll ever get for Skyrim.
Ah, okay.
Fniz sexy move, I think, was what one of them was called, and it was it just allows you to tweak how the movement animations worked so that everything wasn't so clunky, like stomp all the time, and you're jumping animations weren't just you crouching in the air and hovering up and down.
Okay.
With
Well,
your legs as wide as they can.
like I said, I'm not getting into the game again, so I'm not going to look at the mod.
You should.
Because I have to force myself to not. Probably until Elder Scrolls 6 gets announced will I go back to that game.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's the bottom 5 of my list. They were in no particular order. I'm going to put these in an order, which depending on the mood that I'm in, changes every now and again. But right now in this mood, my 5th is Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 1.
Fair. Never got into Telltale games myself, but
I never did, and I'm not a fan of point and clicks. I
played season 1. I don't think I ever played well, yeah, I did play season 2, but it just, I don't know, it didn't have the appeal that the first one did.
Yeah, I think that was a problem with a lot of people in that community, because it was a very popular game, and it was very, very emotional as well, because you really invested in these characters, and of course it came from a big franchise. The Walking Dead is a very well established franchise, and it told a story that revolved around different characters, although occasionally some characters that you would recognize popped up every now and again. For example, Glenn was briefly in season 1.
Oh yeah, he is.
And all of that
Popeye.
kind of stuff. Popeye, yeah.
also known as Popeye.
But I think
Don't remind me. So sad.
you really got, at least for me, I really got emotionally invested in that game, and the ending of it really struck a chord. I mean, I'm going to speak about PewDiePie here, but I think one of his most famous videos was when he was finishing The Walking Dead Season 1, and he just starts breaking down in front of camera. And I remember...
I don't think I blame him.
He must have seen a bridge.
It's the game is very emotional, and it is very well done from a narrative perspective. I don't feel like your choices made all that much of a difference when it got to the end of the game, because the ending will always be the ending, and I think a lot of people were miffed because of that. But for me, it was an incredible story.
Yeah.
And that's why it's up there as one of my top 5. The emotional roller coaster that I was on was, yeah, I'll leave that there. Number 4 is a game that I pre-ordered a couple of days before it was released. I still play it to this day, and I still consider it as one of my favourite games of all time, and I will still play it for the next 5 years. I have every DLC package, and I can't wait for the next one to come out. That game is Stellaris.
Ah, Stellaris,
Never tried
of course. You're
I-
always playing Stellaris.
Oh, that game is incredible. I played a lot of Age of Empires 2 when I was a kid, and I really liked the real-time strategy. Civilization...
I'm an absolute pleb when it comes to RTS. I quite like Civ 6 though, which obviously is an RTS. But...
Yeah. Civ 6 is very good. Civ 5 was where I started playing the Civilization franchise. And I enjoy the turn-based strategy, but it's nothing compared to RTS in my opinion. So like your Age of Empires, fantastic RTS games, Age of Mythology, those classics. I think because I'm such a sci-fi nerd, when Stellaris first came out, I was really intrigued. You create your own race of people, you give them their own ethics, how they have their government, and then you have to interact with the rest of the galaxy through trading, through fighting, trying to build federations, and all of that whilst improving your technological knowledge and advancing your technology to things that you've seen in multiple different sci-fi pieces. So there's a lot of bringing every piece of sci-fi you can think of, bringing that together that really, really intrigued me. I mean, you think of most sci-fi things, it's most probably going to be in that game. You know, wormhole travel, warp travel, hyperlane travel. You can do all of them in the game. Less so now in its recent update, but you advance your technology to be able to travel in those specific ways. You know, enhancing your people. Are you going to go down the route of robotics and start having human-styled AI, which other people around that kind of galaxy do not like, and they will go to war with you on that front? It's all in all, I love that game. The modding community had a great time with that game as well. I frequently play it with mods. I've gone back to vanilla because for me that's the best way to experience the DLC. If you keep mods whilst DLC is being released, you're not too sure what's a mod and what's DLC, in my opinion. So I like to play vanilla first and then mod.
Yeah.
But the updates that they've brought out are really good, and it's not like you have to have mods to enjoy the game, or you have to have the DLC to enjoy the game. They frequently update the game, which gives it a completely different kind of experience. So they changed the way that you travel across the stars. At first you could choose your 3 options: your hyperlane travel, your warp travel, or your wormhole travel. They then condensed all of that, said no, you have to get to there and you'll all be fixed on hyperlane travel, which gives you a completely different strategic kind of movement as you go out and explore. That I could sit here and talk about Stellaris for so long. The multiplayer aspect of Stellaris is fantastic as well. It's so good. You can have like 20 people all playing different civilizations that they've created themselves through a server with all the DLC. Some of it's dumbed down because some of the DLC can be quite narrative focused, but everybody has access to certain things within that DLC. And I think that's what I loved about that game as well. It's a game I could sit there and play with friends just for a long, long time, and we'd all enjoy ourselves. I'm going to have to swiftly move on because I really could talk about Stellaris.
Moving on to number 3.
So long. Number 3 is The Last of Us.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very good. Good pick.
Now, I didn't have a PlayStation. I haven't owned a PlayStation since PlayStation 2. When I moved in with my partner Lauren, she had a PlayStation 4, and I always wanted to play The Last of Us. I saw a couple of videos.
Now I think you're lying because girls don't play games.
Girls aren't real. They're not a thing. We've been through this. No, I watched a lot of The Last of Us on YouTube and stuff, and I was like, yeah, I really want to play that game. I really like that game, but I never had the chance to because I wasn't going to go out and buy a PlayStation to play, like a PlayStation 3 or
Casual.
PlayStation 4 to play The Last of Us, because that's all I would have played.
Yeah.
But of course, we moved in. She had the PlayStation 4, so I bought the remastered edition for the PlayStation 4, and what a game!
It is a fantastic narrative piece.
I mean, I talked about The Walking Dead and it having an emotional impact on me. I have never played a game within the first 10 minutes I was so close to just breaking down. And I don't know these characters. I don't know what's going on. I've got absolutely no emotional connection to any of these characters. And within the first 10-15 minutes of the game, I was nearly broken. That's how good the narrative of that game is. And seeing the main character as broken as he is after the event 10 years later, and I think I can't explain it. It's so good.
That opening section of the game, even after going back, gets me.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. I went back. I played the original on PS3. I do have the remaster on PS4 as well. And I was playing it, and I think I took a picture of the scene. It's years later. We can talk about the scene, can't we?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's years later. So obviously, when she gets shot.
Yeah.
And he's holding on to it, and he turns around, and then when he realizes, I took a picture, and I sent the picture to Leachy, and I was just saying like, gets me every time. I'm pretty sure he replied with something like, "Oh Lord, oh no."
It's
Because
heartbreaking.
it's such an impactful scene for a game.
Yes, but that's what I mean. A game that can do that within the first 15 minutes
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
whoever wrote that is just
Yeah.
an artist. That they've done so well with the narrative of that game. There was no point that I was bored playing through that game. I enjoyed every damn second of it. Every second of it. The relationship between the two main characters are fantastic. And I cannot wait for The Last of Us 2, but I'm so worried. I'm so worried that they may spoil it.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's...
Not live up to the first. Or...
Yeah, that's the thing. I think so many people may be disappointed because it might not be as good as the first. If it is, then oh my god, how the hell am I going to contain myself? When we do this in 10 years' time, and I'll be going, number 1, The Last of Us 2. I swear to God. But the community is going to expect so much from The Last of Us 2 that I genuinely do not think...
Sometimes it's hard to live up to a certain
Do you know
level of hype.
the hardest part about a game with a fantastic story is knowing that you'll never experience it for the first time again?
I know, yeah.
It's always special, isn't it?
It's still...
Oblivion! I will never ever walk out of those sewers for the first time and see those ruins across the water ever again. I will never walk over there like, ooh, what's this? And have the 2 bandits in fur armor screaming at me to die.
That just
Never
sounds like a
again will I
Friday to me.
experience.
I'll leave it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never again will I experience that again. That was such a glorious moment. But that's not this decade, so
No, unfortunately
whatever.
not.
Move on.
Jumping around everywhere. Athletics has gone up. Level up.
Yes. What a way.
Yes.
Okay, so final 2. Now this was a very difficult choice for me. Because
Was it I Am Bread?
yeah, it was 100%. both of these games are so good. My second game of this decade is Elder Scrolls V Skyrim.
Yeah. No surprises there. I know how much you've played that game.
I love that game. Even from the announcement trailer, when it was like the dark, the dragon wall at Dragon's Keep.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was like, and then it was the really kind of croaky voice, and it was like, Dragonborn, and then the dragon came out, and then the music. I was going.
Their tongue.
Oh my god!
Dragonborn.
I still get chills now. Like that's how good that game was, and
1-1-1-1-1-1.
oh, it was so good. That whole announcement trailer. I've never been hyped for a game more than I was hyped for Skyrim. And do you know what? It lived up to that hype. That's the only game... actually, number 1 is now that game. But that is one of the only games I can sit there and say I was so hyped for, and it absolutely delivered my hype through and through. Seeing a dragon for the first time, this absolute behemoth in front of you, when you're just outside of Whiterun, you just go, what is that? And then it just explodes fire right in your face. You're like, oh my god, he's smashing me, but this is the best experience of my life. Like, he's melting my face, but I want more. And then it was just the whole game, and then I know, that's how good it was. That's why I'm so upset that it's not my first one, like my top game, because I have said it for the past year or so that my top game I consider better and more enjoyable, and I've had a better time playing it than Elder Scrolls V. But Skyrim was just incredible. It had its issues, as with every game.
Yeah.
This one, it was glitchy. The loading times were quite long, but for a game that was back in 2011, when that came out, that game was incredible. There is no two ways about it. I'd have arguments over it with anyone over it. The game was so good for its time. So good. The side quests were amazing, and the moments, I don't think I've ever had chills quite like moments that I had in Skyrim. Like I said, the first time you see a dragon. So,
Oh, yeah.
and not Alduin at the start of the game. That's incredible, but you can't do anything. The first time you fight a dragon, and the fact
Yeah,
that
but
it's just
my
so
ancestors
good.
are smiling upon me, Imperial.
Yeah.
Can you say the same? So before you move on to your number one,
Yeah.
I actually managed to successfully open a D&D session with a Skyrim cart reference. So we ended
Yes.
one D&D session with everyone having saved the town, and they'd managed to barter passage with one of the traders on the back of his, wagon, his cart, to the next harbour town where they could leave the island because they were on a small island. Well, I opened the next session with a bit of an on rails thing, which is often frowned upon by D&D, but it was for comedy. Where I had Leachy's character hearing the trundle of wheels on a pathway and the trot of hooves, and as he wakes up, he looks over at one of the other characters who says, "Hey, you're finally awake. You were caught trying to cross the border with that thief over there." And he then wakes up screaming, "No, Todd, no!" And then realizes that no, he's actually seeing the sea elf and the dragonborn that are his companions.
You're a hero. You're a hero. Okay, so I'm going to stop fangirling over Skyrim now and bring you to my top game of 2020. It's actually only recently come out, within the last 2 years, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's I have never been more immersed and more impressed in a game in my life.
It was coming, I think.
I've never had an experience quite like this game. I just genuinely think it is the best game of the last decade. That for me is Red Dead Redemption 2.
Ah.
Okay, yeah, not what I thought.
What were you thinking?
I thought you were about to spout Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
No,
But then I was like,
no,
well, you said
no,
it came out in the last 2
no,
years. So.
no.
Yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2 was probably one of the best single-player games of recent years.
Now, I'm taking the online out of it completely because you're never going to get a fantastic online experience like you would GTA 5 as a comparison. It's a lot slower. The world's more dead for a narrative reason. But the story of Red Dead Redemption 2 was so very good. It was, graphically, it was one of the most gorgeous games I've ever seen. Side missions were a lot of fun, and the world felt alive. You wouldn't walk through the barren wastelands and nothing happen. You would randomly find people who were obviously scripted to be there, but the developers had gone into so much detail in a single player mode that you were never bored. In my opinion anyway, at no point was I ever bored. Even through the bits where you just normally walk through things as part of the narrative, they would deliberately start moving the camera in a specific way and deliberately start playing a specific song to really keep you immersed.
I remember this one time. I was just traveling between missions. I think I was going to see my next.
That's what I was thinking.
my next mission giver, and there was this guy that had been bitten by a snake or something.
Yes, I know.
You give him the medicine,
snake, yes.
You save his life, and then it must have been like 3 hours later, in real time. I make it to this town. It's the first time I'm visiting this new town, and the dude is sat outside the gun shop, and he gives you like a token to just go in and get a free customization or a free weapon. And it's like, if you didn't save him all that time ago, you don't get that.
Yeah.
And it's just those little things, like even the silly little scenarios where someone's been kidnapped, so you kill the bandits and untie her. and then tie her up yourself and take her back to. Moving on.
Well,
Well then.
But yeah, it was just like taking part in those little scenarios gave you some kind of reward, whether it was immediate or later on down the line.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't completely without meaning.
And that's the thing. Nothing kind of just started and ended straight away. Every action that you completed, usually there was follow up to that, and then there were really interesting stories like the murder mystery stories that they put into the game. I never did them, never completed them, but occasionally I'd run across different parts of the world where
and you'd
there
find,
were
like,
bits like
blood
body
all over
parts
rocks
and
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's those little details that they put into that game that made the entire experience so immersive, so interesting.
It's a marvel of like a living worlds.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic for making the worlds feel and seem alive.
And it did that. I think it set out to do that, and I think it did that. And I don't think anybody was disappointed with the story, the single player story. I don't think there is a person alive who can actively sit there and say, really, they didn't enjoy it for a good reason. And I'm saying that as, I don't like these kind of games. That's not a good reason.
What ending did you get?
Sorry, go on.
What ending did you get?
I went for the good ending.
Yeah, did you get the fully good ending?
Yes.
Did you get the secret cutscene
What's the secret cutscene?
with his horse?
No.
You didn't get the secret. Oh.
Which part are you talking about? Where
So it's right. It's at the end as you and John are escaping.
where he says thank you.
Yeah.
Mate, please don't bring that up because I really don't want to cry.
Yeah, but it only happens if you have full companionship with your horse before that scene.
Yeah, I had
It
that.
otherwise doesn't trigger.
Because I got do you know the 3 rare horses that you can get across the world? I got the one in the white one in the mountains, and I got that horse early, and I held that. I think I called her Snow, and I had that horse the entire way through the game, and then when she died, and he leant down and said thank you, that broke me.
Yeah, that was sad.
That destroyed me. That really did. I don't like reliving that shit.
All right, okay.
No. That was so good. Like that whole game for me is my favorite game of the decade because
it is one of the top games of the decade. To be fair,
purely on how it looked, how immersive it was, its gameplay mechanics were on point. Its attention to detail was incredible, and the actions that you make as a character really did affect the narrative, like those small nuances of narrative that weren't part of the main story. You know, and even after the game ends, when you're playing as John, they still managed to tie in all of the stuff that you missed as Arthur throughout that game. They still managed to tie it in so that you could continue that as John.
Oh, nice.
So, for example, the guy who's shouting after his mate.
Yeah. He's looking for his. What's his name? Every now and then at night time, he'd be drunk, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Have you seen my friend?"
Gavin.
Gavin.
Gavin. Have you seen my mate Gavin? I
never found him.
I never found Gavin, but when you're playing as John, which is like 5-10 years later, when you're going through a town, or at least I had this experience because I never completed that quest line. He's there, and he's like sitting on the street or something. He's like, "I've not seen my mate Gavin for years," and like it's an obvious continuation on that quest line, but as if it would happen 10-15 years later.
Like, yeah.
That level of detail is why, for me, that is the best game of this decade. Excuse me, this decade.
I didn't think of it, but I can probably agree with you there.
Hmm. But that's me. That's my 10. I'm really intrigued to hear your
Right,
last ones because
so
they're the same,
yeah,
aren't they?
this is gonna probably this discussion will end out the video. It's been a bit of a long one, but we are talking the whole decade, so understandable that it's a bit
Yeah.
longer. But the one that we agreed on that is a massively underrated, and we still think about the game today, is Medal of Honor Warfighter / 2010, if you want to try and rope that in with it, but primarily Medal of Honor Warfighter. The game ended up being the death of the series, Medal of Honor in general, but we don't blame the game, we blame IGN. So Medal of Honor Warfighter built on what Medal of Honor 2010 had done, and that was to make a gritty, a rugged shooter. Now, for both of them, story-wise, their campaigns are the greatest first-person shooter campaigns I've ever played in my life. No other first-person
They
shooter,
were short and sweet, but they were
were
quite impactful.
very well. Both games were games that when the credits rolled, I sat there and I just sat there in awe. I think it was Warfighter. I think pretty much brought a tear to my eye. I sat there at the end of Warfighter just like, whoa. I think what helped was the fantastic choice of music. 2 Linkin Park songs. I think it was Castle of Glass and
The catalyst for 2010.
the
and
Catalyst for
Glass.
2010 was the credit one, and then Castle of Glass was the credit roll music for Warfighter, and both of them were so perfectly chosen for the story, for the campaigns, and just the way the endings hit you. I think as far as first-person shooter storylines go, absolutely phenomenal. But they definitely really did something a bit more gritty. Now, first-person shooters are trying to be more gritty these days, particularly with looking at the new Modern Warfare. And I just don't think anything has been able to capture the brutality and the grittiness like the 2 Medal of Honors did. But also with the multiplayer for Warfighter, it was clunky and weighty and things like that. And
Reload timings and stuff felt really
yeah, but yeah, the reloads, like they didn't feel just like really easy. Like you really felt it when they were reloading a magazine and putting the bolt. And we absolutely loved it. It also had the operator sort of style that some other games have gone for recently, where you had members of each sort of special forces. You had SAS soldiers, you had Navy SEAL soldiers, you had, I think there was some Gigan in there, I believe. But they were all like tier 1 operatives. But it had some issues. I didn't experience as many issues as other people said that, they have, but there were definitely some issues with it. But what really, really killed the game and killed the series, in my opinion, was the way IGN marketed the game, which is not how it was intended to be marketed by Danger Close. So when Medal of Honor Warfighter was first being marketed, everywhere, all you could find was IGN repeatedly spouting their reviews and stuff, and all they ever called
COD killer that we're
all
looking
they
for.
ever called it was the COD killer, the COD killer. This game's gonna kill COD. It's basically like COD but better. Oh, it's gonna destroy COD. It's a better version of COD, and it didn't play like COD at all. COD is a
Play closer to
very
Battlefield.
yeah, COD is a very arcadey shooter. COD is great. I love Call of Duty, but it's very arcadey. Everything is very quick, very clean. Whereas this game was slow and clunky, but it was supposed to be. And yeah, it played a lot more like Battlefield, only it wasn't vehicle based. It was only infantry based. but gunplay-wise, it played like Battlefield, but slightly clunkier. I loved that, but because of the fact that it was repeatedly marketed as this is basically COD, it's better than COD, it's the COD killer, the game released, it was primarily picked up by people who were expecting a COD-like experience. They didn't get that experience, and then IGN did nothing but spread loads of bad reviews about how it was trying to be a COD killer and failed. It's not better than COD. It plays nothing like COD. Why does everybody want this game when they think it's going to be like COD? And just, I don't think I ever seen IGN talk about Medal of Honor Warfighter without COD being the main topic. And I fully hold that accountable for the downfall of Medal of Honor in general, because of the fact that Medal of Honor was never meant to be like the closest Medal of Honor on COD have ever been is back in the old days, back when you had the first 3 Call of Duties. They
Back
were
when COD
similar.
was built off of a Medal of Honor team.
Yeah.
Exactly. But modern day Call of Duty, it played nothing like the modern day Medal of Honor. And so I honestly think that the only reason that that game ended up being a failure and Danger Close ended up shutting down, most of the team being absorbed into, I believe, the Battlefield 4 developers.
Yeah, because my first experience of playing Battlefield 4, I used to comment on how like the reloads of certain weapons on Battlefield 4
Felt like
very
Warfighter.
Warfighter-esque.
And it turns out a lot of the Warfighter devs went on to help development of Battlefield 4. So anyone who absolutely loves Battlefield 4 but thinks they hated Warfighter should go back and think about Warfighter and wonder if really it was the marketing and the hype that was the problem, not the game. Because I honestly don't think it was the game. It's one of my all-time...
It had issues that went unfixed, but
yes.
I don't think
get me
they
wrong,
were...
not a perfect game. Not a perfect game. It had bugs. But the main complaint about the game, particularly as shilled by IGN, I have never forgiven IGN. I detest IGN to this day because of this, was the fact that if you searched Warfighter before release, all you could ever find was IGN comparing it to COD, and if you searched Warfighter after release, all you could find was IGN talking about how it failed at being the COD killer, and it did not fail because that was never its mission. It was...
Mission failed. We'll go next.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time. Quality reference. But yeah, I honestly feel like Medal of Honor 2010 was great, loved it, but Warfighter was just phenomenal. And I go back and dabble in them from time to time. I think I went back to 2010 a little while back to play the campaign, because the campaigns still hold up today. They just are fantastic, and the multiplayers were just incredibly enjoyable, but they died because they weren't what IGN marketed them as.
There
Also,
you go.
2010, for example, had a system that was basically adopted by many Battlefield games later. So they're like upgrade things. They weren't like kill streaks, they were more like score streaks, but as you built up score, it allowed you to purchase certain minor upgrade options, a lot like how the Battlefield 5's squad point system works now, where you can call things in and stuff like that. There's a lot that Medal of Honor 2010 and Warfighter did that, although those games are now dead, they left their mark on many other games. A lot of people don't realize that. So yeah,
There you
there's
go.
my controversial...
Your top 10. I think you
Yeah.
pretty much explained it very well for Leachy as well. To the reasons as to why.
Anything key you feel I missed there, Leach, or do you just primarily agree with what I said then?
Nah, yeah, I think that the multiplayer as well, not just the campaign, but the multiplayer had its place, was great fun. Was one of the first games I know of to have had the buddy system, where you always had that one guy that, as long as he was alive, could spawn in.
Yeah.
And you gained so many extra points for working alongside them. And it was like, there were just things that games do now that honestly Warfighter did too.
Warfighter
It
was the
just
first
shows.
to do them.
I
Yeah.
think it's a very underrated game that was killed primarily by bad reviewers, not just IGN, but I think there were other review sites out there that were like, "Are we finally getting the game that could dethrone COD?" And it's looking to be a lot like Call of Duty, and that
It
was
wasn't.
never its intention. And anybody paying actual attention to the development of the game and like listening to what the devs had to say, that wasn't their intention at all.
No.
Like we're talking about a time where Call of Duty was just fucking run and gun, and there was no real like. I can't say that Call of Duty didn't have some kind of authenticity behind it, but it wasn't the point of a COD game. I think at the time.
Yeah.
No,
I
They
can't
were as
remember which
arcadey
COD
as
was
arcadey
competing
came.
with
Yeah.
Warfighter at the time, to be honest. Maybe Modern Warfare 3, 100%. But yeah, like for me, Warfighter set out to do something different, but everybody thought that it wasn't aiming to do that. And so when it did do that, and it wasn't the COD-like game that everybody was expecting because of all the respectable, and I say that with quotation, all the respectable reviewers were saying, "Oh yeah, it's basically a COD game, but it'll be better."
And it was Black Ops 2 was the COD that released that year. Black Ops 2 was so COD when it was at its height of boots on the ground, but everything is super fast.
Yeah.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the our decades. I think there's definitely some honourable mentions in there. Some you may say, "Meh." In terms of honourable mentions, I think.
I have an honourable mention. Come to think of it.
Go on then. Quickly, not in too much
Max-
detail.
Max Payne 3.
Yes.
Some of the best shooting and time play mechanics in a third-person shooter I've ever experienced. It is so satisfying to nail somebody in the head on that game. Like, it's way up there. Its storytelling's a bit wacko. The Max Payne games always were, but for its core gun mechanics, honestly, I think Max Payne 3, well up there.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
That is a fantastic game. That really is. I completely forget how good that game was. Same with definitely I agree with you on that. Well, Max Payne 3. I'm not sure if this was this decade. Oh, it's disappeared out of my head now. Splinter Cell Conviction. Yes.
Massively underrated, I think.
Massively underrated.
I
I
love
don't know.
Conviction.
I don't know if it was this decade. It might have been like 2009. I'm
I
not
think it was
100%
late,
sure.
Naughty.
2010.
It was 2010.
2010. Yep, 13th of April 2010.
That game
Just
was
about.
so good. I loved
wanna-
Conviction.
I want to very quickly say then Squad.
Yes.
Not something I've played, but
Squad, if you're a milsim player, if you like things like Arma 3, then the State of Squad of recent is a very, very good game.
okay, not fair. I've got two more.
Go on.
This one is very much a community, but I feel it went the same way as Minecraft. It was quite revolutionary, and whilst it's not always done and always played, people consistently do go back to it. But Pokemon Go
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting one, yeah. But no, I get your reasoning.
yeah, it wasn't the greatest game in the world, but do you know what? It did something that no game really has ever done before. It got people up and out. And it got people talking to each other. There were times
It got
where
a lot of mainstream attention,
Yes,
which is rare for a game.
but it was all warranted. It was granted it had problems because I don't think the creators of the game were expecting it to be as popular as it was. But I mean, I remember going out walking for miles on end with some friends, seeing other people at stops, having conversations with them about the game, all whilst the servers were completely dying because so many people were trying to play.
Yeah.
That definitely belongs up there as one of the best games of this decade, I believe. Just for how
Influential.
influential it was. And there's so many games
Everyone
that are now
knows
coming
of
out
Pokemon
because of
Go.
it. Of course they do, and everybody at some point with a smartphone has most probably played it. So yeah, that definitely gets up there for me. And One that might be a bit controversial, but Titanfall.
Titanfall's great.
So my reasoning for Titanfall is you've got Call of Duty, which is your fast-paced arcade shooter, but it was also a point where you would run around the map for ages, not see anyone, then just die, which I think
Basically.
that's quite frustrating. Your Medal of Honor and your Battlefield games, which is very, very objective based and very, that's like you feel like you're in a more open scale war and all of that stuff. But both of those games required somewhat a measurement of skill. With Titanfall, because you had, NPCs and there was a little bit of PvE with its PvP and, getting into a massive Titan mech and still having that fast-paced action, I think that caught both sides of that kind of, that divide between Call of Duty and what? I've just said it. Battlefield. I think that caught both communities quite well. The first Titanfall, I think that did very well.
Titanfall is a very good honourable mention. I do like the first Titanfall. It definitely did something. Well, it did something that COD later followed.
Yes, but
it was the dark days of COD when it followed it.
Yeah, it tried to be too much like it.
Yeah, COD tried to be Titanfall for a time, and it was probably the darkest era of COD. But it tried to be like Titanfall for a very good reason.
Because Titanfall was a very good game.
Yeah,
through and through. Okay, they're my honourable mentions. Do you guys have any more quickly before I move on to the last bit?
No, that's
no.
Yeah, no, I think I'm done.
Brilliant. Okay, so that leads me to, what do you guys think is the game of the decade? I think personally, my top 3 may be running that in terms of community impact, replayability, and just how much of a good time I think a lot of people had. Those being Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, Red Dead Redemption 2, and The Last of Us. Purely, I think it would be one of those. I don't know if that's the same opinion you two have.
See, it wasn't in my top 10 list, but once we started talking about it, I could probably agree with Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, if anything, I'm thinking it maybe should have been in my list. As I was making the list, it's not something that came to mind at the time, but as soon as you mentioned it, I could agree with it. And talking about the level of detail in that game and the attention to detail, more importantly, it's just a remarkable piece of game design. And any games that can even come close to the attention to detail that game has is set up to be a good game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I could agree with Red Dead Redemption 2.
So is that what we're going with? Our game of the decade is Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yep, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I can see that.
There we go. That was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
You thought there was going to be controversial opinions, but now as soon as you mentioned it, I was just like, yeah, no, I think he's right there.
I think it's going to be hard for anybody who at least liked that game to not say that it is one of the greatest games ever produced.
Yeah.
Rockstar, they do really good games. Red Dead Redemption 2.
I would just like to apologise to the poor developers that have to deal with the crunch for that game.
Yeah.
Fantastic game. I'm sorry you had such a shit time.
Yes.
Because, there is the controversy of the Rockstar crunch.
On that cheery note, right, of course, anybody who is still here after 2 hours and 10 minutes, fair play. Because
I mean, we were talking about the whole decade.
Yeah, true. I'm not too sure if I'm going to split it out. But, of course, with anything, I think knowing what your opinions are and, you know, what your favourite games of the decade are, because we're all gamers, we all love talking about games. Obviously, we've just done it for the last 2 hours.
Just call it the 2-hour decade special.
Yeah, that's it. We want to know your opinions as well. We really would like you guys to get a little bit involved. What did you think of our opinions?
Me
All
and
that
Revac
kind of
definitely
jazz.
want to hear it. Leachy doesn't.
No,
He's
yeah.
Leachy thinks you keep your opinions to yourself, but we would love to hear more.
Look off.
And we're more than happy to comment back and have a chat with you guys in the comment section below. Sorry it was so long. I think it warranted it though, and I don't think at any point we kind of weren't relevant to what we were trying to achieve. I kind of wish I didn't do the 15-minute starter segment of what you've been playing, because I didn't think it was going to last this long. But
maybe we should have done top 5 instead of top 10.
I
We'll
don't
bear
know.
that in mind.
Top
for the
5
next time.
would have been a lot harder, because it would have been quite difficult for me to not have
Would
put
have been
Minecraft
harder, but
in.
it would have been probably half the length of video.
Yeah, but not having Minecraft in there is... That's a difficult one, because it would either have to be Stellaris or The Walking Dead Season 1 that was removed, and yeah, that's by the by. But anyway, we're finally ending it there. It's going to take me about 4 days to listen back to this on my trips to and from work. But thank you anyone who is still here. We really appreciate the time. And we're really thankful for anybody who has seen the previous ones. And I tell you what, I'm looking forward to more podcasts and bringing more content like this. So hopefully you guys don't run away. That's Roost and Leachy. Hopefully you guys don't run away.
Yeah, I mean, you've still got my wife and kids. So.
Told you, you're not getting them back. Anyway, we're going to end it. So thank you so much, everyone who's still there. We shall see you guys hopefully within the next couple of weeks. Depends on how burnt out we are. But please do let us know your opinions. And I'm going to say goodbye now. So thank you again.
See ya.